As we progress into the month of December, it is time to slowly wrap up this crazy year. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 36 of Under the Middle Rope. I'm your host, Jose Tabuada, and yes, this is the first of two parts of our year in review for the year of 2020. I mean, I say it in the discussion, and of course, I figured I have to say it again, that for what it was a crazy year, no doubt about it. I know it's affected a lot, but here we are as we are inching away from 2021. But yes, of course, we need to look back at 2020, and today we start off with the negatives. With the stuff that made us cringe, the stuff that made us mad, the stuff that made us question wrestling a lot and wonder, God, why? Pete Atkinson is with us today, so there is not much to it. I am ready to go, so the only thing that I can say is just sit back, relax, and enjoy 2020 Part 1, Rough Waters. Hey everybody, welcome to the discussion. Pete, as always, is here with us.
Howdy.
It's nice to have a guest again after I went solo last week.
Did an alright job though.
Thank you. Yeah. I thought it was okay. I thought it was nice. I mean, I just laughed at. I still laughed at last week. I pulled a WWE and had to rewrite the whole episode because of again, like I had something completely different last week, but that was last week. We're here now. December. We are in December. Oh, we were in December last week when I released the episode. Did I? Yeah, we were in December last week. Anyways, yes, it is December, and and 2021 is almost around the corner. We are nearly there to say goodbye to whatever 2020 was.
Yeah.
If you want to, I mean, and now this is outside of wrestling. Go.
2020 existed, didn't it? It happened.
It really did. 2020 really existed, and now here we are ready to get up to 2021. But of course, as is the tradition with every December, for anything, any subject whatsoever, we have to look back. We have to look back at the year that was. And of course, for this podcast, we have to look back at the year that was in wrestling. And excuse me. And whoa, I had to clear my throat there. I apologize for those listening on Spotify or with headphones. But today's episode, before we get onto the holly jolly stuff of 2020, because yes, there are positives in 2020, despite what we've all as a whole global entity went through. We gotta look at the negatives first. We have to look at what really ticked us off in 2010. And Pete was nice enough to, good old Pete, kind of to really dig in and think of the negatives here. So I will say that I will come forward and say, yes, this is all mainly Pete's list. Of course, I had to look at it to see just to see if I can agree with it. But for the most part, I can. And actually, some of these things I even forgot because a lot can happen in a year, as was once said in the WrestleMania 24 opening promo package. A lot can happen in a year. So Pete, if you want to start, whichever point you want to go with first, let us do this. Let's go to the in no particular ranking. Is this ranked?
Oh, this is not ranked even.
It's not ranked. So in no particular order, no ranking whatsoever. Let's start off with the first topic of what essentially you hated, but we hated.
Yeah, this is me just thinking back and going, well, that was crap, and that was crap, and that was crap. And I can do that quite easily, to be honest. I remember a lot of stuff. Maybe a lot of WWE fans, other fans don't. But I tend to remember a lot of the good and bad stuff in wrestling. So let's just do it in one word, which covers two of these points in one. Lana. Lana in 2020.
I mean, look. Before we go on, can we say that? I mean, like compared to all the years that Lana has been involved in WWE, since now we're now going back to 2015, I believe, 2014. This is like her. I guess this is her most productive year. Do we want to say it's her most productive year?
Productive though.
Badly productive, yeah, but she's doing stuff. It's not like
bad stuff. She's doing
sure, you can say that. Yeah, fine, that works.
Like there was a point when Lana was in a role that suited her, and that was being Rusev's manager, and that really did suit her. And since then, they try to make her. Well, if you do the recent stuff first, so all the recent stuff are going on when they're trying to make her this plucky underdog that we should be rooting for just by repeatedly putting a terrible wrestler through a table. And I don't want to cheer for Lana. And it just drags everybody in that feud down. It drags down Asuka, because now Asuka's playing second fiddle as the champion to her. It drags down it drags down Shayna Baszler, who was like your prominent NXT Women's Champion. And even just today, I was messaging Nick earlier on today, and we literally both said, you had a ready-made feud that everyone could have got invested in Shayna Baszler versus Asuka at the moment.
Yeah.
Of your two greatest NXT Women's Champions could have been going at it for the first time ever. And they had the throwaway match, first time ever between them, this week on Raw. And it was about Lana. Like, why?
I mean, I was even. It's good to follow up on that point. I was even surprised. I mean, like I said, I don't keep up with Raw as much as I'd love to. I do catch highlights for the most part. I am aware of what's going on. It's just like there are times I do have to catch up with highlights, and I was just amazed when I found out that Lana pinned Shayna cleanly. And I know some people were saying, but Asuka came in to attack Shayna. I'm like, it doesn't matter by definition. If you're still covering somebody in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
it's considered a clean win. It's considered clean. It's like, really, we're doing this to Shayna. We're pinning her a loss against Lana.
It's just bad. Like that, you had a ready-made feud in the women's division for people to care about, and it was bad enough that you put Nia Jax in there as well, but putting Lana in there, it's just
And I think next week it's going to be Lana Nia on Raw. I think. I mean, obviously, that's what we're all going to tune in Monday Night Raw for. But
we also know at TLC.
Yeah, there's a tag team match at TLC, which of course, in case we haven't seen us in a couple of weeks, we're not going to be doing predictions fallout for TLC. So we're really hoping that nothing serious happens. But we're not going to be focusing on TLC at all. And I think I probably just because we're burned out of predictions. But yeah, I mean, like,
if something serious happens, we'll discuss it next year.
Yeah, I mean, like, the worst thing is I'm pretty sure Lana and Asuka are going to win that at TLC, which just adds on to the misery of this Lana thing. But you're right, and I do want to focus on your second point here, because I mean, like,
this wasn't even the worst Lana story.
Yeah, because I know we've been focusing on this in the last few weeks. It was a big point heading into Survivor Series, and now, I mean, you can't forget that we open up the year. I mean, to be fair, we open up the year at our workplaces, which feels like such a long time ago. But we open up the WWE year with this Lana Rusev, Liv Morgan love triangle. Don't forget Bobby Lashley was in the mix as well. And don't forget that
she married him.
That's right. She married him. And don't forget that people were saying, "Hey, let's see where this goes." No. Oh my God! Some people backed this up, and I mean, I look back at that, and obviously, again, like, I remember where I was, and I was at work before the pandemic shut down. I was at work, and I'm watching this while I'm, like, focusing on my work in front of me. I'm watching it on a second screen, and I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus. Oh, no. And then my coworker sees what I'm watching. He comes beside me. What the hell is going on? I'm like, I wish I could tell you. I really wish I could tell you. And like, oh man. It was, oh Lord. I mean, the whole thing was a mess. And of course, it ended up ending with it wasn't like that whole marriage thing didn't end until after Backlash, did it not? Or around Backlash, where Lana asked for the divorce. Oh, sorry, Bobby asked for a divorce.
Bobby asked for a divorce, and God, like, I never thought you could really say that Bobby Lashley was devalued in something because it's Bobby Lashley. But even he was dragged down by that program. And then it basically got Rusev to leave. Rusev went, no, you know what? I'm done here. I'll go and be Miro. And
which is unfortunate because, I mean, like, I don't want to be harsh, but he also technically left his wife alone there in that state, which sucks. But I mean,
she's just put through tables since he's gone as well. It's just horrible.
I think I remember some people saying, you think this is punishment for Rusev leaving WWE to AEW, that Lana gets put through these tables? I'm like, no, they're just trying to make us love Lana. It's not working.
No, but
it's not working. But
when Liv got involved in this as well, and there's been like people in WWE who've been outright calling to be part of like a progressive angle of lesbian, gay, etc. angle.
Yep.
So people like Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, for example.
Sonya was especially pushing it with Mandy, yeah, of course,
really
and
pushing for it on that side.
yeah,
And
it's
they could have
unfortunate.
done something very progressive and that could get behind and demonstrate how far WWE has come. And instead, you ended up with this Lana Liv trash.
No,
Went nowhere with no end game at all, just for the sake of it.
And I do remember the reaction at the time from Mandy and from Sonya. You can tell like their tweets at the time were like, "Great, just great." Like like they were like hinting at it or at the frustrations. And I think there was even a report just recently, like about a month ago, saying like Liv at first was somewhat uncomfortable with the situation, but she wanted to try to make the best of it. And props to Liv, for on record saying wanting to try and be a professional. But like I think she was aware that like, okay, this is weird. This is weird, but I mean, like, yeah, like there is the whole representation issue because obviously, you want to, if you're going to progress with something like that, or if you want to do something like that, obviously, yes, you do want the right representation for it.
But it's also weird because Lana is just such a strange choice, considering she's married to Rusev in reality, and everyone knows she's married to Rusev. Then they're doing the fling with Bobby Lashley, and then to try and throw it into actually she's interested in Liv Morgan.
Yeah,
it
was a disaster. It was unfortunately a disaster, and I just think that it's unfortunate that the year opened up like that. And again, I remember people were saying, "You guys see where this goes." I'm like, "No, guys, this is dead on arrival." And from these reasons alone that you're saying, Pete, it's more reason to not go further with it. But of course, we have to see. Let's see where this goes. Let's see what happens to Bobby. Let's see what happens to Lana. Let's see what happens to Rusev. And it never worked out. And in fact, leading up to WrestleMania, I don't think was Rusev even on the. I can't even remember what Rusev was up to for WrestleMania, but not.
Was he fighting Lashley still probably around that time?
I don't think, and I'm pretty well. Now I'm gonna look it up. I don't think. I'm pretty sure Lashley,
even on the Liv Morgan point, you could have done something with Liv, and maybe I even had something with Liv and Ruby Riott if you wanted to go that direction, and you wanted to try a lesbian angle with Liv Morgan, and Ruby Riott is got enough of a personality, charisma, etc., that she could potentially make that type of thing work.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the wrong choice and wrong put together, and the wedding angles are crap, and wedding angles in general, for the most part, have been terribly done.
Oh yeah,
WWE. Just the odd ones will work, but not
for the record. It was Aleister Black against Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania that year. Yeah, Rusev wasn't even on the card at all, and of course, if I'm not mistaken, Lana accidentally helped Aleister pick up the win. Of course, if you want a reaction to it, you can click on the top just above Pete's head. You can click on the card and go to our third or second or third episode, I believe, when we immediately off the bat we did cover WrestleMania.
Double part of that as well. Double part.
Yeah, so if you want a reaction, there it is. You can go back to the early episodes of this podcast. Yeah, at the end of the day, it just did not work out, and I guess the plus is, I'm happy for Rusev, who's now obviously in a much better situation. Obviously, he's been somewhat quiet on AEW, I believe, as of late. But
yeah, I watched some of the stuff on his Miro TV, and that he just seems to be a lot more chilled out, and
he's happier. He's definitely happier, and that's I feel it's unfortunate that's the general consensus when people leave WWE. Of course, you want people to be happy working for that company, but I mean, again, at the same time, if you're not in the top spot, you're gonna be in for a rough ride. And speaking of not being in the top spot, your third point,
and talking about near enough dead on arrival as well.
It's near dead on arrival again. If not dead, of course, I've been expressing a lot of frustration.
It should be dead by now.
I've been expressing a lot of frustration on this on social media continuously, week after week after week. But of course, people want to see what happens here, what happens there. But I'm talking about Retribution.
I struggle to believe anybody is still on the let's see what happens.
I mean, look.
4 months ago, maybe. Now, even when Ali joined, I can kind of get your let's see what's happening now. They've made it.
Not even.
It's dead.
I mean,
it is so dead.
I mean, I was very pessimistic from the. I wasn't pessimistic from the start because the first initial things are like, oh, okay, cool. And I think, and to this day, I will always write that they missed such a big opportunity with this in Survivor Series. They missed such a big opportunity with having a Retribution versus WWE. You could have done something completely different with Survivor Series. You could have completely mixed it up. You could have get rid of the old narrative of Raw versus SmackDown and said there's a group of people behind a hacker who are trying to take over WWE, which by the way, I still don't like that they connected the hacker with this. It's just it feels so out of place. It still feels out of place now because it's just there's nothing much with this group. Mustafa Ali, I'm sorry. Like I'm sure he's good. Like I know he's okay in the ring, but this is not for him. This is not working.
He's excellent in the ring, but
Yeah,
like most of these people in this group are excellent in the ring. It's almost like WWE were trying to murder this angle. It's a parody angle almost. How badly they dealt with this, because every step where you had some intrigue, the next thing they did was kill it. So you have these people attack, and the first interest, I was like, okay, this isn't as good as like the Nexus when they invaded, but this has got my interest. And then they did it for too long.
Yeah.
And then they went, oh, we now know who these characters are. It's like, it's Mia Yim, it's Dominik Dijakovic, it's Dio Madden. And you can start to look at these and go, okay, this could be an interesting group here. Let's see what they do. And then they go, and now it's Slapjack and T-Bar. And you're like, what the are you doing? Then Mercedes Martinez just disappears back to NXT, which shows they completely gave up on her doing anything. And then they just kept losing. It wasn't even like they tried to push them.
I think that's the bigger party, because it's unfortunate that this company is all about they're not as direct about it as AEW is, but wins and losses are still pretty big. And I mean, not necessarily just from a win-loss record in terms of ranking, from a kayfabe standpoint. If you get a win, you get that quote unquote rub, you get opportunities. It shows okay, they want us to be interested. Again, case in point, Lana, right? So if you wanted us to be interested in Retribution, you needed to stack up a couple wins against the Hurt Business or against some other teams here and there, and nothing's working. It's like,
and then when you debut Ali, they did like a really quite a nice promo, like the actual promo, where he was even when he was like the hacker, and when he started saying how frustrated he was, all that was quite a nicely done promo. But in that same episode, they got jobbed out. And that just doesn't work. You have to show that, okay, Ali's now in charge, and they're beating the Hurt Business. They're beating down these faces. They're getting on top. Mia Yim lost like her first 2 matches to Dana Brooke. It's
Jesus Christ.
It's just terrible.
I forgot about that as well.
It's just utter garbage when you get to that point. And I feel sorry because Dominik Dijakovic in NXT was an interesting guy. Whereas actually, this guy can wrestle. And to be honest, as bad as it sounds, I actually think he was the one carrying those Keith Lee matches a little bit. Because Keith Lee is excellent. Don't get me wrong. Keith Lee is excellent.
No, for sure, of course. I mean, as for Mia Yim, I mean, it was literally a year ago when I saw her competing for the NXT Women's Championship at TakeOver Toronto the night before SummerSlam.
Yeah, that was pretty bad, bro.
I mean, I think it's great, but I'm just saying, look at the position she was in compared to where she is now. Because now you're like, oh dear Lord, oh boy.
Just kill this now. Kill it with fire. Let Dijakovic go back to NXT, pretend nothing happened. Yeah, whatever. But let him go back. Actually, let Mustafa Ali go back to NXT as well, like nothing happened. Let him go and try something different.
I don't know where. I said last night that if there was a group that needs to be slowly faded away, do it now. Start it now. I mean, like we did it with Raw Underground.
Don't slowly fade away. Just cut it. Just
cut it. Yeah, like Raw Underground. Which is a point that you didn't bring up. By the way, that was like another bad.
Yeah, I should have. I for some reason. See, it shows you how much shit happened this year that I completely forgot about Raw Underground and how terrible it was.
Yeah, it's again, like I've never liked Retribution. I hated the connection with the hacker. It felt forced. It didn't felt worthy. And then obviously fans get all excited. Oh my god, what if he's a hacker? I'm like, shut up, you kayfabe freaks.
That's fine if you make.
I didn't like it
storyline, but if you make it work into the storyline and make
it barely did.
Yeah, that's my point. They didn't.
It barely did.
They had one episode where they mentioned it and referenced it because people wanted them to mention and reference it, and then they gave up on it.
That's what makes me laugh, because again, people were like, "Oh my god, it makes sense. This is perfect. This is brilliant." I'm like, "Huh?
Well, it can make sense. It could have made sense.
It could have, but they didn't.
Elaborate.
So I called that.
They didn't then bring it into the storyline.
I'm like, this ain't gonna work, children. This is not going to work. But
Oh well, that's probably enough for Retribution.
Yeah, I'm sick of it. This is I cannot wait.
Oh, more fun! Everybody's favorite next.
Yeah. You say it. You say it.
Super Showdown.
Yeah, that's all. Moving on. Super Showdown. Of course, this event happened in February, just after the Royal Rumble in beautiful Saudi Arabia. Gorgeous, breathtaking, exhilarating Saudi Arabia. No.
I'm going to be honest. I have not seen this. I refuse to watch all the Saudi shows live out of principle.
Yeah.
I don't. I've watched some highlights of some of the things just to see how bad it really was. And from the impression I get and the impression I get online, this might be one of the worst cards WWE has ever done.
It's bad. It's
there is. I hate bringing up, but like Dave Meltzer, for example, had 3 matches on this card, get 0 or below in star rating.
Now for the record, I mean, before we, I know I understand that a lot of people do hate Dave Meltzer because of his rating and his opinion, which is his opinion at the end of the day, folks. But personally, I do like to go to his ratings as a basis, as an understanding. Okay, what am I expecting? And if people get mad over that, Jesus Christ, relax, people. But
it's when people get mad at the difference between like 4.75 versus 4.5, and you're
exactly. It's really good.
He's saying it's a very good match. You can go and watch it if you want to. That's all that references. But this card had the gauntlet, which was apparently terrible for the Shoeake Trophy or whatever, which Undertaker won for some reason. It had Brock Lesnar versus Ricochet, which could have been a Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles type of match, where it actually could have been a star-making performance, and instead he squashed him in about 90 seconds. I don't think Ricochet hit one move in that entire match. And obviously, everybody's favorite, you had the hottest thing potentially in WWE, holding the Universal Championship in The Fiend. You had this massive, elaborate entrance. Everybody's behind him. And you bring in Big Daddy Goldberg and pretty much glorify Squash the Fiend. Because he's a superhero and he needs to keep up his superhero image for the kids by destroying the big bad monster.
For the kids. Oh man. I mean, look. I don't mind. I don't mind like oh my god, my family's making a lot of noise. It's very hard to concentrate. I don't mind. I will say I don't mind a Goldberg appearance. I'm one of those rare few that's like, okay, it's Goldberg, yay! And I mean, again, I saw his interest twice. I didn't think I would, given the age that I'm at and given how long he has. Seeing his entrances in person, it is one of the more hype things that I think a WWE fan can experience, because it is a lot of fun. It's like, holy crap, here he comes, right? It's like the pyro and everything.
Yeah, of course. Like it's still Goldberg.
It's still Goldberg. Exactly.
I have no issue with Goldberg turning up. I have no issue with like Sting turning up in AEW. I don't have an issue with legends turning up. I have legends turning up and then putting forward themselves that they should be squashing the new up and coming talent. That's my problem.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, like, I understand, like I said, I do understand the frustration. You know, I mean, like, I know we've on this podcast alone in the past year, we did speak about, like, you know, we have had people that couldn't stand Goldberg. We've had people that just get frustrated with the situation, and it's true. It is true. Because it's set up. I mean, mind you, I mean, who can forget that the original plan after this was going to be Goldberg and Roman, so we can all get back on Roman's good side again, right? And then the pandemic happened.
Like, I have no idea how that would have actually gone over if it happened.
It wouldn't have gone well.
I think that match might have got booed out the building.
And frankly, I think for the best thing for Roman was a pandemic. There's not even like any. Well, I say that
booking wise,
and a kayfabe wise. I do not mean in real life. Nobody wanted this to happen. Nobody is positively affected by the pandemic. Well, maybe, but I'm just saying, like, yes, I do have to mince my words very carefully, but I'm just saying that yes, for the most part, that that, like, like obviously Roman stepping away and then coming back, and then it just worked out for him. But this Goldberg thing obviously led to a Braun Strowman Universal title reign, which is also forgettable. There's not much, and I mean, like you said, I mean, like Ricochet. Again, I mean, like
one of those people who wants out by now. He must be one of those. He must be one of the people in WWE who want out.
I mean, I think there was a moment. I think there was a fan reaction clip that I think there was a moment that like a fan was recording Ricochet leaving Raw, like leaving the set one day, like just before the pandemic. And you see like Ricochet all frustrated, taking off his wrist tape, heading into backstage into Gorilla. You're like, oh boy. And I mean, yeah, it is frustrating, but
it's bad.
It was just a tough show to begin with, and these shows for the most part are never like ideal. I mean, nobody likes them anyway. So I mean, but this in particular, you're right. It was just not fun.
It's bad. It's just bad. But maybe we should step away from WWE for just a moment.
Yeah, no, I know you're. Yeah,
there is bad stuff in other promotions as well, and as good as I think AEW has been this year, it's had its fair share of some terrible things. I could have just done the entire AEW women's division on this list, but I decided against that. Decided against doing that. But there is one moment which stood out for me as being utter garbage in AEW.
Again,
the appearance of another legend.
He is a legend. Who are we kidding?
Yeah, but he's not really he's not a wrestling legend.
Not a wrestling legend, but
Big
Mike Tyson. Iron Mike Tyson. I have to say, I completely forgot what the conclusion was of that.
They basically, actually, to be fair to them, they basically listened to the fans, because this was obviously meant to lead to a Tyson versus Jericho feud.
Right.
And for once, I think they saw that got such a negative reaction, they just scrapped it.
They scrapped it, right? Yeah.
So they had a weird pull-apart brawl, which looked atrocious to close a Dynamite. And probably the worst Dynamite of the year. They had that weird pull-away brawl between Tyson and Jericho, and then that was it. They saw the reaction it got, and then they moved Jericho to Orange Cassidy feud.
Right.
Okay. The next week on Dynamite, if I remember correctly, Jericho called out the supposed best fighter there is around and got an answer from Orange Cassidy instead. It's coming out.
That sounds right.
But then they also had the bit before it where I think it was I can't remember who it was, but it was one of the matches on I think it was Cody versus Cody. I can't remember who it was. It was Cody versus somebody on the pay-per-view beforehand, and Mike Tyson was at ringside, and he was the one presenting it, and it was the debut of the Lance Archer. That was it. It was the debut of the NXT title, and there was a point where they zoomed in on Mike Tyson and he was yawning. And I was like, oh, for God's sake, guys, come on.
Like I said, I mean, Tyson in his own right is a legend. I mean, I know he's not favorited with a lot of people for some good, legitimate reasons. I mean, he did have an incredible comeback fight a couple weeks ago. I have to say, I mean, it wasn't like, I mean, the guy still got it.
I didn't watch it.
Oh, you should have. It was a lot of fun. Tyson should have won that fight. I don't know why they called it a draw, but yeah, I mean, it amazes me the pull that AEW. It surprised me because I mean, like, if it had been WWE, obviously we would have seen Jericho versus Tyson regardless. We would have seen it, right?
Yeah, it would have happened. It would have happened the same way like Braun Strowman Tyson Fury happened.
It would have had. Oh my God, Braun Strowman Tyson Fury. Oh Jesus.
That wasn't this year. That was last year.
Oh my Lord. But I mean, it just amazes me. Like the reaction was incredible. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because again, like I'm just it was also like a little bit scary to see how much pull, how much influence the fans have with AEW, because if I mean, like my only
fine, because if they've said they're going to be a company for the fans and they're going to listen to the fans and do what they say, And if the fans immediately scream at them, "This is terrible, drop this," they really probably should, because there is perseverance, and then just realizing, "Oh, we made a mistake here. Let's just move aside." And Jericho, you're going to now go and face Cassidy, because that's something the fans seem to want.
I say this because there's also like that small hypocritical sense where, where we've seen like rough storyline, but then we've had people say, wait, let's just see where this goes, right? But then it's shut down here. You know what I mean? Like it's like
the middle ground. So like,
yeah,
AEW, I think, are doing quite well at times, because they could have also done the same thing with the Dark Order, but they persevered with the Dark Order despite the fans being against it, and eventually, but they changed the direction of it a bit. So they kind of went, okay, this isn't working, but the fans seem to like these vignettes we're doing, so we're going to do more of that.
Yeah.
They just kind of like moved it. Whereas some of the Nightmare Family, where the fans immediately shat on it, they carried it on for a few weeks and went, okay, no, this just isn't working, and dropped it.
Right.
And I'm just finding that balance of when.
Yeah, it's definitely finding the balance, but I also think like, like sometimes something could be shut down and then you never know if it ended up being good. For example, imagine if the New Day was shut down in its initial run immediately because of the fan reaction, right? I mean, look what they've gone on to do, right? I mean, it took them a while.
That's maneuvering it to the right place. That's the difference. That's when they've maneuvered it correctly, and they went, okay, the fan reaction is this, so we're going to actually make them into heels for now, and then we're going to turn them face when it's the right time. They did it right with New Day. The difference is you look at Retribution, and they haven't maneuvered them all. They've just piled on more shit on top.
Kept them in the same place. Yeah. Okay. Fair point. I mean, yeah, like I think it's unfortunate that we have one of these what ifs. I mean, it could have, probably would have been bad at the end of the day. Jericho versus Tyson. I don't think it would have worked anyways.
Especially in a company that's priding itself as being.
See, I also say this because I'm also very impressed as to what Tyson did a few weeks back at his age in the ring, in the boxing ring. I mean, like he still landed. He was still He's still got it. I'm not saying he's in his prime.
He would obviously win a legit fight against Jericho. There's no doubting that. It's just
how many people want to see that though?
It's no, and I don't know why. I don't really particularly like crossover that much in wrestling as well. MMA is a bit different, because MMA, like, some people can come in from there and just adapt to wrestling.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like, because I know it's going to happen. It might be great. It might not be, but I'm not at all excited for Shaq, for example, being on Dynamite this week. But it could be great. It could be terrible. I don't know.
I mean, like, yeah, I don't think
have no excitement for that whatsoever. I've got no excitement for the crossover.
Like I said, my argument with that is like, if you were supportive of the Lana Rusev angle, you can be supportive for 1 week of Shaq. If it is 1 week, but I'm just saying, like, we've seen worse things to shut down. I mean, and this, like, something like that, I don't think fans should be quick to shut it down. But I mean, it's Shaq.
It might be fine. It might be good. It might be entertaining. When I see that announcement, it doesn't make me want to watch.
Fair point.
Is the difference?
Let's move on. Let's move on down the card here, because we are cruising along here. I forgot about this. I forgot about this.
This is scarred to my brain.
Because I mean, like I said earlier, when this happened, it does feel like we were in a completely different time zone. It felt like we were in a completely different era, because this was when fans were still attending
January.
Where fans were still attending the shows at complete full sections, sitting all together, all across, before we all let the social distance. Roman Reigns and King Corbin and their feud that happened earlier in the year. When we say feud, and if you're wondering, wait, what in particular? I had to be clarified for me. We're talking about the dog food that was ringside had to be poured on one another. Oh my god!
Yeah, it was grim. It was horrible. It was disgusting.
I completely forgot about it. I'm like, oh no.
It was bad. It's one of those that scarred on my brain as one of the worst things that has happened on an episode of WWE TV. Yeah, and it's just Roman Reigns chained to the corner, and Baron Corbin and Dolph Ziggler just pouring dog food on him. It's just so bad. It is just so bad. And the thing is, their actual match at Royal Rumble was actually decent.
It wasn't that bad. I mean, like, it was a traditional street fight.
It was fun. There was
Going
a full,
through the crowd,
anywhere. You had like them running across the like the baseball, like
the outfield. I mean,
they had them above like the players' benches thing. You did like a running spear along that.
dugouts and all that. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a baseball nerd.
It was a fun enough match for what it was, but this feud is literal dog shit. That's what this feud is. I don't know how much you want to go into that because it happened. It was when we still had fans, and my God, ending those shows with like, you look at Roman Reigns where he is now, and then you look at like where Roman Reigns was 12 months ago, and holy hell.
It's amazing. I mean, mind you, I have seen like those crazy transitions where you're like, all of a sudden this person at the beginning of the year was like, huh, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, right? It's Roman is a huge example, and I'm very happy that the direction that he's in now, compared to where we were 12 months ago with the dog food thing. I'm like, it's funny, like if you told yourself in January that Roman Reigns was going to be the top heel, obviously in January just after the dog food, you're going to be like, no way, he just put dog food on Corbin. No, it's not going to happen. It's just going to do some crazy cheesy shit, and then they're going to have the big superhero woman at WrestleMania. It's like,
because no one ever believed they'd actually turn him heel. But
exactly.
With Roman Reigns, it's what people have been saying for years, though. It's always like you're doing these crap, cheesy babyface angles of suffering, succotash, all that kind of crap where it just wasn't him. And it didn't get sympathy really as a babyface. It was go away heat for Corbin, and we don't want to see this Roman. So it never worked to the point where you're like, actually, I really want to see Roman Reigns get his revenge on Corbin. It was always, why am I watching this? Why is this on my TV?
Yeah.
Now, Roman Reigns is a person I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait for somebody to actually take this guy down.
Oh, I love it. I'm very, I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about that next week for our positives. Because
probably someone will bring it up.
I'll bring it up. It's so great. And again, like it's good. But yeah,
But his year started off terribly.
Yeah, there's not much to say else other than like it was just rough. And I mean, King Corbin is still trash at the end of the day.
Yeah,
he's trash.
Like I had when he retired Kurt Angle, I said if when he retired Kurt Angle for a year, I was going to be a Corbin mark, and I stood by my words there. I was praising Corbin, everything he did, but that year's passed now. And to be fair, he's fine. His character is fine. It just shouldn't be in the top feuds. It's one of those mid card heels.
Yeah,
maybe
that's why I just
do its job in that mid card heel job because he does it well. He gets.
Yeah, I remember.
You want to see get beat up generally, but not when it gets to the point where he's throwing dog food on people.
Yeah, I remember being in the stands for that Angle match, and I'm legit in tears in the stands in section 117. I'm like, oh no, like that stung a lot just to see it again. Like me being a big Angle fan, I'm like, oh, that just sucks. And then as you see him walk up there and say goodbye, I'm like, oh, you like just wiping my you bastard. Oh, love you, you son of a bitch. But I was very frustrated that Corbin was in that spot, and it's just he never should have been there to begin with. But oh well. Let's continue to move on. In this, I forgot about this too. This is like the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits. And we're talking about the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits. We're not talking about traditional one-on-one matches. We're talking about the basketball contests,
axe throwing,
all these parking lot brawls, and then the eventual
ham hock and stuff, whatever it was,
and then the eventual. I believe was it WrestleMania? It wasn't WrestleMania, was it?
Oh, it was Backlash, I believe,
when they teamed up. And then the ninjas came out of nowhere.
That's the one, yeah. Where they had all the ninjas come in with Akira Tozawa and randomly turn up, and then you had some weird swamp monster in the bin at the end of it. And this was what worried me because WrestleMania, in my opinion, had two phenomenal cinematic things at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that happened, I was like, oh dear, WWE are going to jump on the positive reaction they get from this, and they're just going to do it badly. Money in the Bank happened, and Money in the Bank was kind of middle ground for me. Money in the Bank was still very, very fun.
Yeah.
When it happened with all like the going up the thing, there's enough there that was really entertaining. And then we ended up with like this. We ended up with the Bray Wyatt Swamp match, which didn't make this list quite because I didn't think it was too bad. It was just kind of it was there.
Yeah.
But like when it got to like the point where this happened, and there was one in NXT as well, where I think it was Adam Cole versus Velveteen Dream, that was just dreadful as well. They just so overdid the cinematic matches in ways that you didn't want to see these cinematic matches done, where it became too stupid, too contrived, and it's classic WWE where they take something they got the comedy right, and they've got it like funny, it's entertaining, which is things like Firefly Funhouse, things like Money in the Bank, to the point where it becomes too slapstick, children-y, horrible.
Yeah, and that was
weird comedy where it just doesn't even make sense anymore.
And that was the Street Profits, exactly. Like in the Viking Raiders or the War Raiders or the Viking Experience, whatever the hell you want to call them. It was just weird.
To be fair, I could have put the WWE tag division on this as a whole as well. Like the same way I could have put the AEW women's division. I could put
seriously, no, you're not wrong. I was watching some like old stuff on YouTube, and I'm like, boy, WWE really knew how to work their tag division and make them all feel like.
They didn't, though, to be fair. They knew how to make about 3 or 4 teams look really, really good.
But sometimes
you go back to like the 90s, like 80s, 90s, obviously.
No, I mean, but sometimes that's all it takes, because I mean, he had groups that were still over with everybody. He had like groups that were able to be tag teams that still worked out, right? You didn't force people to put together. They kind of just, whether they did or not, they made it work. But putting people together by just, they call them a tag team, it just doesn't.
Nowadays. But then they split teams up. Randomly for no reason, and then put together other teams randomly for no reason now. And that's how WWE...
Peyton Royce.
Peyton Royce is the worst example. Why the hell she split with Billie Kay to end up with bloody...
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
That's like the worst example. But there's others as well, like all the way through, like legitimate long-term tag teams now. There's like one or two of them in WWE.
There's not many left. And I mean, like with the Viking Raiders, I think it's not Rowe.
Hansen.
It's Hansen.
Hansen got injured.
Who's really severely injured. He got injured pretty bad, so you won't see him for a while. So it's like it's super thin. It's very.
The thing is with people like Nakamura and Cesaro are now randomly a team. Rude and Ziggler are now randomly a team. Like, okay, Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander have technically got like a tiny bit of background now together, but they're still just randomly thrown as a team. Even like Andrade Garza was a random team. Like all of these teams,
they worked. They should have worked though.
They could have worked. They just dropped the ball with them. But to be fair, both of them deserve better. But so, it's just the tag division. It's just a hot mess, and the epitome for me of it. I know a lot of people didn't mind it, but just trading the belts, I hated that so much.
Yeah, no, I get like I
have that honestly, because I know some people didn't mind that, but for me, I hated it because also there's an extra tag team title reign apparently on their records, which is just the worst, most stupid thing I've heard.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
So that's that.
This next thing, I'm surprised you put this because I forgot it was a thing, but we are talking about the very quick. I do.
This will take a minute. There's not much.
Yeah, so we're going. Yeah, this is going to be a minute. Tamina had a title feud. All right, next point.
Exactly. Like that's all that was. Like Tamina should never be near the title scene, and Tamina ended up near the title scene. And despite as many people want to get on the Tamina train as possible, it's Tamina. The end of it's just some people thought she was legitimately going to win that match. I won money from someone betting me that Tamina was going to win that match.
Jesus Christ. You know what? There's so we're gonna let's quickly move on. Before we let's get to this next point, because I think the point after I think there's one point I think you're missing here that I think is extremely important. But there's one thing that we don't do enough, if not at all, it's talk about the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I know I've had some people come up to me saying, "Hey, New Japan content." I'm like, I have no idea. And again, that's just because I don't watch enough of it. I should, I'll be the first to say that I should. But I mean, like, I'm also a person that, like, like, if it's not, like, if I'm watching it live, or if I don't have the opportunity to watch it like in the moment, it's very tough for me to watch it right after. It's extremely tough. But with this in particular, I know I've had friends that came up to me and said they were very frustrated. Pete, you're going to go into more details on this. We're talking about Evil, and his championship reigns, which was a big miss with a lot of people.
Yeah. So New Japan, I'm also going to mention something in New Japan probably next week as well, because I think New Japan did one thing this year was very, very good at New Japan. But I think New Japan has maybe been the company, in my opinion, who's handled the pandemic the worst. I think their booking since like March is just been all over the shop, to be honest. They've done a couple of things right, but when they lost the likes of Jay White over there, and they lost things like Will Ospreay over there, they had people stuck abroad. They couldn't bring Moxley in anymore. They had all these issues, and suddenly you had Naito, who'd won the double championship, holding the IC title and the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at the same time. That was great. And then one of his first feuds that he was going into, as I think it was Sakura Genesis. No, it was Dominion. Because I think Sakura Genesis was cancelled. So it was at Dominion. And they built up Evil to be his opponent. Like a bit of a rivalry, intergroup rivalry between Los Ingobernables de Hop On.
Yeah, Hop On. Yeah, very good. Very good.
And everyone was like, well, this is a great filler feud for Naito's reign. That's what everyone expected it to be. Evil is a reliable hand to fill in, to have a match against. I would almost compare this to, say, imagine Christopher Daniels getting a title shot in AEW.
Oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got
how I would phrase it. He's the reliable hand, but he's not going to win. Because it's just not right. He's not built up at that point. He's not built up. And suddenly you put the double belt on Evil. And the finish was awkward as hell. They brought in, can't even remember his name. I think it was Dick Togo was the main guy who actually cost Naito the belt. He was just not a big enough name at all for anyone to recognize it. And Dominion was a bad show. There was nothing good on Dominion.
Well, yeah, I've heard it as well.
It was maybe one okay match. And the issue with Dominion is you had people like Okada on the undercard in tag team matches. And when you've got missing a lot of talent, you need to put your big talent left in the big scenes to at least have interest there. And they were down in the tag division. Tanahashi was down in the tag division there as well. And this, for me, really put me off New Japan for like the rest of the year. And that's kind of the reason it's on this list, because the moment itself is not terrible. But on the back of a bad card, to do, in my opinion, a really illogical out of nowhere booking decision, which he then lost the belt back pretty quickly, went nowhere from there. I think the only person he beat was Takahashi.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt weird. It didn't make sense, and it was out of nowhere. It looked like they tried something, and it just failed miserably.
Yeah, that's what my friend was saying as well. Like, my friend, my good old friend Frank, he said he was saying he had the exact same points that he tried to see where it would have gone, but it just wasn't clicking with Evil as champ. There's just
they didn't build him up enough for New Japan.
There was just something odd about it. Yeah.
New Japan build up their challenges for quite a while before they actually pulled the trigger on these belts. And for New Japan, he wasn't even the second biggest member of Los Ingobernables de Hop On. He was arguably not the third at this point. Like 2 years ago, there was a lot of hype around Evil, but they didn't pull the trigger then. Nowadays, it was Naito's obviously the number one. Then it's Sanada at the time. Like, Sanada has been pushed better than Evil had over the last 12 months or so before that.
Mm-hmm.
And arguably Shingo Takagi had been pushed better than Evil at that point. He'd at least been involved in some big high stake matches. Takahashi had been he'd been the IWGP Junior champion in this time. Evil had done nothing, and then suddenly he's your champ, and it just does not draw eyes. It's not a big champ, and it made me not want to watch New Japan. And usually, at least for the big shows, I'm hyped because I'm so used to New Japan at least delivering on the big shows really good wrestling with really like good top quality matches with really respectable champions. And Evil is a good wrestler, but he's not at the same level as like your Okadas, your Naitos.
Of course, yeah, no, I get that. If I had to make a WWE comparison, and again, I'm going to be stretching. I feel like I get attacked here, but because I know what I'm about to say is significantly worse, but I feel like it's the same scenario when I say Jinder Mahal.
I knew you were going to say Jinder Mahal.
That's the only thing
as bad as Jinder Mahal.
Because as you're saying this in my mind, I'm like, that describes the Jinder Mahal title reign.
It's not as bad as Jinder Mahal, but it is that type of.
It's a type in the sense where you're like, like, wait, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Of all people, is this happening?
I'm trying to think of someone who could win it now, and I would have said maybe like 4 months ago it would have been someone like Sheamus winning the title again, but like for the first time. But that type of level of competitor, and you go, almost weirdly, it's almost like Baron Corbin going to win the title, but
maybe
it's not quite as bad as those. But it's that line where it's a guy who's your mid carder, he's an established mid carder, he's not near the title scene, he's getting a title match, but everybody knows he's going to lose that match, but then he wins. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And it's just not New Japan. It's not New Japan book. It's not why you tune in for New Japan, which is the hard-hitting wrestling. It's the long built-up feuds and programs. Not necessarily in-depth, like soap opera storylines like you might see in AEW, WWE, but hardcore wrestling storylines, long-term rivalries where these guys have been teammates for a long time and now they're fighting, etc. And you build it over a long period, and this just wasn't that. It just wasn't New Japan. It didn't work. Evil is not a draw. I apologize to people who like him. 2 years ago, I was on the Evil train, but nowadays it's just not a guy you want to see, especially after Naito. And Naito is obviously back as champion and whatever, but after Naito wins his big, huge moment, and then that kind of got spoiled a bit at Wrestle Kingdom itself, to just give him a reign where he just loses a dominion to Evil just felt such a waste.
Yeah, no, that does sound unpleasant.
It was bad. Just a final summary point. It wasn't bad for it being bad. It was bad for being disappointing in terms of the company and the promotion and what you expect from that promotion.
I do want to move on to a point that you didn't write down, but I think it's very important to talk about because it was really one of the darkest moments in WWE. And I'm talking about the releases that happened. In May and April, of course, we did an episode on it. I believe it was called Release Shocker. I think I did it with Wolf. I know we did a full episode and we listed everybody who was released then. It's the reason why I bring it up because it was just so nice. Because I mean, it impacted a lot. I mean, I know the pandemic was used as an excuse, but the amount of jobs that were lost, the amount of frustration, there was a lot of like cloud, like there was a lot of darkness surrounding. Surrounding that moment. Again, unfortunate, very, very unfortunate that it ended up happening as it did. But no, I just think that's just one. I don't know how much we can go into it because again, I said, I watched the episode again. The card's up at the top right if you want to see it. But it was again at the time. I was just like, oof.
It's definitely one to mention. Obviously, when I was doing this, I was trying to keep it. I was almost kayfabe doing my list. In a way, it was almost like storylines rather than politics of wrestling. But obviously, that is
it's
the worst moment of the year because obviously we've lost some legends this year as well.
Of course, as well, yeah. But
those type of things. But it's obviously up there in terms of a company like WWE who did not need to release anyone. Releasing these people in a pandemic when some of them didn't want to be, like some of them wanted out, those people wanted out, fair enough. But the ones who wanted to stay getting released in the middle of a pandemic is kind of disgraceful. And it was a dark moment.
It's unfortunate. So I think
it's still the one that stands out for me.
Sorry?
Anytime I see the list, Mike Chioda is still the one that always jumps
Yeah,
out.
it's still. I mean, I think he was again quoted. He's like, if you wanted, he was quoted a couple of weeks ago. If you wanted me to retire, then just tell me and I'll do it. I'm like, wow, that's like that says a lot. But we're gonna go to one last point before we wrap up. I again, I saw this point and I laughed because I remember how much we destroyed on it thousands of times. And of course, I'm talking about Drew McIntyre winning the WWE Championship.
Oh my
Well,
god!
I'm kidding.
Horrible moment.
Eye for an eye. We're gonna close out with eye for an eye. Who can forget eye for an eye? The stipulation with Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio that whoever the first person to gouge the person's eye out wins. And it was great.
It's the worst. You know what the worst thing about this is? This happened in July.
Yeah.
We're now in December. And the storyline is still basically going on. We're 5 months on the line, and there's still it's just about finished. Like 2 weeks ago, this storyline pretty much finished between the Mysterio family, Seth Rollins, and Buddy Murphy.
Like, who was it? Who, for the record, Buddy Murphy wasn't a part of the original story with them. And then he was
the disciple. He was the disciple back then, but
that's what I mean. It's hilarious. It's really funny. It's like,
oh my god!
I'll never forget. Again, I'll never forget my best friend. I'll never forget my best friend. Bless her soul, man. I love her so much. She's so great. But when she texted me, "Jose, is this real?" I'm like, "Oh no, sweetie. Oh no." Again, like, I'm like, but again, like, if somebody who doesn't want WWE, if they got that, I'm like, WWE did its job.
I'm fairly sure I went for like a 5-10 minute run on the Extreme Rules Fallout, just about how awful this match was. I think we all went a rant before the match, and then after the match, I was just like, my god, this is the most illogical crap I remember seeing. Again, because technically, this was a good match.
It wasn't bad.
This should not have been an in-ring technical match. And I said the first thing that happened in this match was like an Irish whip leapfrog in a match where you're trying to remove your guy's eye. I was
start him off slow.
In ring, this was like a 4-star match probably, because in ring it was a very well executed match.
It was.
The overall concept of this is just utterly garbage.
Oh my god! Yeah. All right, guys, start the match. Rip your eye out. Okay, this is some Irish whips, chain wrestling. Here we go. Again, like, if you want to hear the more of the reaction to that, because we went in complete detail, it was hilarious. You can look at the top right as well for the cards. But I remember you making that point and just laughing so hard. I'm like, wait, you have to rip the other's eye out, and you're starting with chain wrestling.
Exactly. What the fuck is
that? Starting with chain wrestling. All right, guys, Irish whip in the corner. Here we go, and a grapple hold. I'm like, what are you doing? Get his eye.
Get his eye. Why? And there's no points where he's like, had the chair, and he grabbed the chair, and I was like, well, stab him with it. Just go for it.
Just jam it in there. I mean, I will say, I mean, like, I know we're talking this is the worst moment, but you can see that this whole storyline has been just atrocious, and only because of the length. Only because of moments. Sorry?
It had its odd moments. Like,
it had its odd moments.
Dominic versus Seth had a great match together.
That was my point. Because, like, despite all this negative, despite this whole feud, it did bring us Dominic Mysterio, who is, again, in my opinion, is very, very promising for the future. I'm really excited to see where he goes in 2021. But yeah, I mean, like just the fact that it lasted so, like, half the year, 6 months. I mean, it's not even like a storyline that just was worth it to continue going. I know we've had past
started just after Mania. It's been going on since just after Mania. Like this,
it's like
Seth Rollins Messiah thing.
See, what makes me mad about this is, like, yes, I mean, you know, like, you can have long feuds. I mean, of course, Triple H, Shawn Michaels went on for years, literally years, right? And it ended at Bad Blood 2004, if I'm not mistaken, right? But like with like, and yes, you've had moments in that storyline where, like, you know, it could have legitimately ended, right? For example, like Last Man Standing at the Royal Rumble in 2004, right? It both ended in a draw. Okay, there's more room for that, right? Or you had like the street fight at SummerSlam the year before, I think it was Triple H that came out victorious. Was it Triple H or Shawn Michaels that came out victorious out of that? I can't remember. But in this situation with this storyline, there were legitimate moments that, okay, this is it, right? There was no sign of, okay, we're going to keep going. Unlike that storyline with Triple H and Shawn Michaels, it kept going.
It also has to make sense to keep going and make you more invested at each stage
Absolutely.
to keep the story going. And this did the opposite. When you started bringing in Aaliyah and you basically Jeremy Kyle or what, Jerry Springer over in the US or whatever it is. But when you started bringing in those type of angles, where it's like, where pretty much you have like your family and, oh my God, it's not your real daughter, and oh my God, she's now dating Buddy Murphy. I was like, this isn't making me more invested in the feud. This is making me less invested.
Yeah, it makes you want to run away. Yeah.
You've gone from a really intense rivalry downwards to a weird family feud, not the TV show. However, I would be down for that.
I think it'd be hilarious.
Like Mysterio family
and the Rollins family now with their new child Rue. Congratulations to them, by the way. Of course, with Seth becoming a father.
On your French-based sauce.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Leave them be. It's their choice. Well, before we get our asses kicked by Seth and Becky,
that was one of the worst moments, right? Having a baby called Rue. That was on it.
Come on, leave it alone.
That's why it's on this list. But as you mentioned, I even completely forgot about like Raw Underground and stuff like that. So there's loads of moments that we've probably completely forgotten about that were also absolutely garbage. So let us know what we forgot.
Exactly. Yeah. If there's anything else we forgot, let us know in the comments below. Of course, next week we are going on a more positive note on the moments that made us laugh and we put a smile on our faces. And fortunately, there were a lot of those as well. So don't worry about that. And Pete, as always, thank you. And let's get to the closing.
Bye-bye.
You made it to the end of the episode. You made it to the end. And of course, again, thank you to Pete for coming up with that list. Again, like some of it even caught me off guard because you forget, and a lot can happen in a year. As I said in the opening of the discussion, a lot can happen in a year. But that was that. Next week, we continue this two-part series as we get ready to say goodbye to 2020. We look at the positives. We look at the positives. We gotta be uplifted. We gotta be happy. There was some great stuff despite the year that was, and we're going to be taking a look ourselves. We're going to be digging in what we thought was positive for the year. So stay tuned for that. And of course, I will have to tease a little bit when I say stay tuned because we do have a familiar face returning just before we wrap up the year. So get excited for that. But as always, that is that. Thank you so much for watching. Become a patron, support the podcast, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube. I'm Jose Taboada, and we will see you guys next week. Have a great one. Bye.